Kateryna Smagliy. I'm a director of Kennan Institute Kyiv office, and today we are going to discuss the topic civil society for transparent contests procedures in cultural sector in accordance with the current legislation that envisages contests for nominating to such positions. And we gathered here the specialists, and we are going to conduct a round table, and maybe we can reach some conclusions. We can speak about the results. So the title is Civil Society for Transparent Contest Procedures in Cultural Sphere. Atlantic Council in the United States last week published an article of mine where I tried to analyze the contest for the position of the head of the Mistecki Arsenal, and this contest was carried out with some violations of procedures. And we should think about whether these contests are really good, whether they positively influence the cultural policy of Ukraine, and whether these new officials will meet requirements and will fulfill their duties during their terms. And our speakers are Olena Salata, expert of the Reanimation package of reform, Viktor Griza, PhD in history, head of the board of all-Ukrainian unit Creative Ukraine, Natalia Zabolotna, activist, founder of the magazine Art Ukraine, former director of Mistecki Arsenal, Yevgen Karas, activist, expert, gallery owner, and curator, Kostyantyn Kozhemyaka, publisher, president of charity foundation Fund for Culture Initiatives ARTHUSS, Olena Matviyenko, producer, and we hope that Arsen Savatov and Viktor Sydorenko will join us soon. My first question to Olena Salata, and I would like that she told us her opinion. She is the expert of the Reanimation package of reforms, and she was the participant and observer of contests and in 4 leading museums. So we would like her to share her opinion about these contests and about the results of such contests. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to start with the fact that Reanimation package of reforms took part in the forming of this law. And we said that this law should be based on the contest of curricula. And now we see these contest procedures in the cultural institutions, and we see that the change in leadership of these institutions, this is a change of cultural community that will form cultural policies, cultural area in the country for the next 5 years. So, I mean, our cultural feel of the country, and we are really concerned what is going on in contest proceedings. The members of Reanimation package of reform, me, Griza, and my other colleagues, we were present at the contest of Mistecki Arsenal and in museums named after Kateryna Kyiv and Museum of History of Kyiv, and we saw those faults and in the legislation and those violations in the sphere. First, this is the creation, the forming of the contest commission. According to the law on culture, the members of the vetting commission should be unbiased and independent. Bodies of power should not interfere in the activity of the commission, and contestants also shouldn't interfere. A museum named after Kateryna and the Museum of the History of Kyiv, they included Department of Culture representatives on this commission, and those people cannot be on these commissions. It is envisaged by the law that the members of the contest commissions, they should be people who are independent. And this principle of independence was violated. By the department, they conducted 22 contests, and they are going to to carry out 20 more. And we ask to stop these violations. There are other violations of legislation. This is that these contests are not transparent. There is no video footage of this contest, and they say that the resources are lacking, technical resources are lacking. Site cannot support such broadcasting. But when they adopted the law, maybe the legislator should have envisaged that there should be some financing to ensure transparency of these contests. Also, we are going to speak that these contests that were carried out with violations of legislation, when there were some officials on the committee who do not meet the norms of law in Article 21.7 on culture. So these contests should be cancelled, or civil society will address the court in order to find these contests illegal. Also, these contests, these should be the contests of the programs of the development of cultural institutions, and we would recommend the departments who carry out these procedures that these programs should be made public. There should be public discussions of these programs. We would like that these contest procedures had proper criteria, how the candidate is chosen, qualification, competences, program activities, and we can join the development of such criteria and provide proposals how to change legislation, and contests should be carried out in accordance with democratic procedures. Our next speaker is Olena Matviyenko, producer who cooperated with National Opera of Ukraine, who also follow these processes. Cultural diplomacy issues are also are interesting to her. So I would like to speak about these contests. Do they really help to implement national cultural strategy? So are these processes going in the same direction? And what attention is paid to the cultural sphere by top officials? The situation in the country is like this. The request of society for cultural sphere, it does not coincide with the view of the state on this issue. The law itself, the selection of candidates, this is a progressive step, but this will work only under one condition. The state should clearly understand what is the strategy of cultural development of the country. There should be strategic view, and the contestants should bring the programs that correspond to the strategy, and society in this situation has requests on cultural products. We all declare that we go into Europe, that we have Euro integration processes. Only society can adequately assess the need and can effectively assess the adequacy of these programs of the candidates. But these programs, they are not made public. As I know, they are just reviewed for 15 minutes by the Commission, and no one can even understand what is there. So this is just formal procedure. And in many cases, people know who will win this contest, and neither society nor state ask whether the program coincides with the aims, with the goal of cultural policy. And in this case, nothing changes. The processes are preserved, and due to this contest procedures, they legitimize the preservation of cultural trends that are outdated, and this is a threat to cultural development of Ukraine. I would like to pay your attention that we were joined by Yevgen Karas, and we wanted to invite him to our discussion. He is a renowned specialist, and he is a commentator on cultural policy. And my question to Mr. Kozhemyaka, who followed the contests, and maybe he may comment whether they were really transparent. If they were not transparent enough, what we as NGOs do in order to improve this transparency. The situation with these contests is not new. We observe it in many areas of life of our state. Olena characterized it clearly, that the state officials, they live their own life, and society lives its own life, and society needs some progress to integrate into European community, and officials want to analyze what benefits the institution has, whether it is assets, property, land, and they want to place their person there in order to deal with these issues. Also, there are some financial flows for reconstruction, and they want to take care of these flows. So we understand the situation, and this law that was implemented, and we saw the results on the example of Mistecki Arsenal, and it shows that the officials try to preserve their way, and they want us to be outdated, and they want to deprive us of our future. And also we see the formation of these contest commissions. There are manipulations with names, and also there is work with personalities, personal work. So they say for example, from 2 million I give you 20, and what should you do? Yes, you understand what you should do. So this is a personal work with the members. So this is about contest commissions. About the programs of the candidates, this is a sad story. So people do not know who proposes what in their programs, even those people who know about these institutions a lot. So they just don't know what is there in their programs. And I believe that the result of this round table will be some algorithm, how candidates, in case of, for example, National Museum of Ukraine, they should publish their programs. They should tell what is the algorithm and mechanism, and also how to implement this program in order that the society can understand, provide comments, and to assess whether this program is realistic. Because we had examples in the Mistecki Arsenal, the person said, I will construct a city garden. And this person is asked, for example, what is the budget of this city garden? who is the contractor, who is going to build it, what is the budget, and what are the sources of financing. And fifth, what about the plan and positioning of this institution? Because on the basis of the successful organization, you want to create something absolutely different, and no one knows who really needs this. So there should be discussion of the programs. And the last one, and this is the rule, this is the axiom, everything positive that is done in our country is done through horizontal initiatives, local initiatives, so there should be control. So the candidate is elected for 5 years, so they give them carte blanche, and this is not good. We should ask them in half a year, we should ask them about their results. There should be a mechanism to revoke a mandate of the person. This is my opinion. Thank you, Kostyantyn. After an Ukrainian Pravda, there was an interview with Ostrovskoye. I wrote to Kateryna Sergetska after 100 days to take another interview. And she said that I do not work at such requests. So this person wrote a PR non-critical view, and you supported the idea about the financing, about how these programs should be realized. They pervert these issues. They do not understand the request of society that we should control how these programs are going to be implemented. Yevgeny, you followed carefully these battalion around the Mistetsky Arsenal and other cases, but I do not want that we would focus on this. We didn't gather here for this. And in introductory word, Olena Salata said that we speak about broader issues. We see the trend. We analyzed contests that were held in 4 museums. One of the Kennan museum director said to his subordinates, just keep quiet. But in her staff, there are really great young successful managers who would be able to motivate and lead the work. So how to earn money for the projects? How can you assess this preservation of this area? And we should demand for new approach in the cultural sphere management without any oligarchic influence, how to make a revolution in the sphere.
First, my colleagues who spoke before, they gave enough details of the problem, explained it. So I would like to mention more global problems, such as the society develops now, especially in communications sector, very fast. The society, the community, expert environment, and civil society, they use to the other pace, to the other rates. And the state is somewhere in 20th century, covering its failures with the lack of finances and resources. It makes us to live in the medieval ages, absolutely lacking this instant exchange of information, internet resources, they're elementary. There are lots of templates and examples. 50% are due to the lack of information, public information, lack of communication. These are fundamental issues today. We can state that Ukrainian governmental bodies, they do not provide us state-of-the-art communication channels and transparency and open environment. I'm very glad that the journalists came to this event. I think that the civil society will become mature when everything will be transparent at every stage. That is why I call on journalists to support us and do their jobs. And send requests to the Ministry of Culture at all stages for modern communications channels with the expert environment. Now, in our panel discussion, we go from the left to the right. I'm giving to you the microphone. Can you comment the role of journalists and your example as a journalist? Thank you for making the issue narrower, because I don't think I'm an expert in these issues, but sometimes I am in this environment. Honestly, I think that the competitions are fake today. There was some tool for changing management elites and to perform it efficiently and massively. There was no tool, so this tool was invented. As concerns the program, I can't imagine what program can Andrei Malero come to his ministry, whether he needs such a program, or to the top management of Meyerhold Theater. Maybe what program should Meyerhold have to go to their top management with? The other folk is, can we make some top manager resign if the program is not complied with? If he is a good top manager, he can change his program in the course of his work. And if he is a bad top manager and he adheres to the program, so he might have not changed the program. Well, all those assessments, all those evaluations are biased. I completely agree with Mr. Yevgen that indeed, maybe because I am a representative of this sector, the root of the problem I see outside this plane which we are discussing in this panel. If we have perfect communications channels, and if the cultural environment, not only artists and their institutions, this story takes place in the culture sector. If in this environment communication take place not in separate small groups, but for grassroots public, not just community, but maybe some experts, because now the warriors of light who sometimes may be more dangerous than bureaucrats. That is why, what can we do? Can we widen the database of cultural mass media sources? Not in this audience. Here it is beyond our control. Maybe we should communicate more at the Facebook pages. Yes, this is so. I think this is a kind of activity we can do. We can discuss not tolerant, not politically correct. To Miss Ostrovska-Luta, I have a good attitude and I wish her every success, but at the same time, I am insulted for Zabolotna. It was not good. It is impossible to formalize something here. Everything very biased, and this bias should be open at the public space. Then bias can turn into a non-biased attitude. We can't now hope to develop some true rules of the game for everyone. I don't believe that we can develop such rules. A small comment. I think that civil society, its main goal, its main objective is to make impact on people, to lead them somewhere, and to influence governmental agencies. We can influence the government and force it to adhere to the law. This is the first thing, and other things are also in our competence. Miss Natalia, if you have been mentioned in such a context of some been insulted by the governmental agencies in the process of this contest. Can you tell us, during the competition, the previous background was not taken into account, only the programs were considered? Every person can write a program. Maybe some criteria should be changed, taking into account the legislative provisions. What recommendations can you give to those public platforms like Reanimation package of reforms who propose such changes to the legislative framework? I've passed all those procedures. The law is not perfect. I'm happy that the Reanimation package of reforms took this mission to complete it. Everything is not very simple. The law can be changed only upon putting it into the agenda. This means that the will should be very strong for changing such laws. So all documents have been publicized. There is the opinion of the Verkhovna Rada that this law is contrary to the constitution, and they recommended to the Committee on Culture to consider this, to take this into the account and to make the law compliant with the constitution. If such law is passed in some other country which is not so corrupt, where not so many hostile takeovers take place like in our country, and the same concern the sector of culture, if there are no so vivid manipulations by governmental agencies who use this law and who use administrative resource, then this law could be used to create favorable conditions. But as concerns Mystetsky Arsenal, the governmental body allowed to come to people who are not adequate, who the members of selection committee. We have questions of ethical and legal nature to them. Olena Salata told us about that. As concerns the ethical aspect, I was judged by my colleagues who has no experience in museum sector. The head was Bogdan Strutinsky, who heads Kyiv Operetta House, and he was from the quarter of the state administration. My subjective opinion is that it was like in 1937 when young men were excluded from the Komsomol. I thought that day that if those people were ordered to issue an order to shoot me, they would issue such an order. People do not change in their mentality if they are conjunct based, and we now do not redistribute assets of Naftogaz or Oblenergo company. Culture should be an echelon in cultural community. This concerns personal factor, human factor. As concerns the competition of Mystetsky Arsenal, it was very vivid indicator of what is happening in society today. I am very much impressed with that cancellation of the competition results at Voznitsky Gallery. The fate of this heritage, it was accumulated. I am a director of Mystetsky Arsenal, and we found it
Ця премія має бути вручена в
award. It would be granted next year in April, and I heard from different people from Lviv and from Miss Larissa, and I'm deeply concerned. It seems that the administrative body, which is the Ministry of Culture, it seems that they know the winner of this future competition, that this potential winner has already been granted awards from the Ministry of Culture. I'm deeply concerned. Larissa Riznitsa can't monitor, can't control all this big area. I am against dynasties and successiveness, but this is an exclusive case. In this case, we should support a person because of her surname, who we should understand that for us, cultural workers, the objects, movable and immovable, they are cultural heritage of the country, and for the administrative body, they are just buildings and land. If Mistetsky Arsenal has 9 hectares of adjacent land, then Podgoretsky castle means hundreds of hectares of land, which is very prestigious. It is located in very prestigious area in the center of Lviv. We understand that there is a law about decentralization of cultural heritage facilities, and in the 5th channel the Minister of Culture spoke lately, and he was asked whether you will give consent to the decentralized objects. Which objects are efficient? Those which provide money, proceeds to the budget. Louvre in France is not a profit earning facility, but nobody thinks of privatizing or decentralizing it in order to get proceeds to the national budget. So we are talking now that the country lacks policy in this sector of culture. The country doesn't understand on national level that this cultural arsenal, when the socio-cultural development strategy was developed, if such strategy is in place now, then we do not have separatism, annexation, thousands of victims. This is my reply.
This is a rhetorical question, and you didn't mention that except of these contests in Lviv, there is also the contest for National Museum in Kyiv. And I would like to remind about the institute, about the interview of Mr. Berezenko. Now he is People's Deputy, and it gives the impression, as I remember, when he was in his office, he proposed to turn Mistetsky Arsenal something like Pompidou Center in Paris. And I thought maybe they should repair doors and stairs, because this is a building in the center of the city, and it doesn't need such great investment as Pompidou Center. And this is thinking of a state servant. He believes that in one gesture he can do some reforms, but he is not informed by specialists of the sphere, but he has such big plans. I would like to ask Victor Griza, who not only observed contests, but also was the member of one of the commissions. So could you please share your insider view? So I'm an agent of influence. I was in different capacities. Maybe you know the story about Mistetsky Arsenal, and you got tired of it. But we should thank the Department of Affairs that they allowed the situation to consolidate ourselves and to express our discontent, because this was the first most known contest, and if it wasn't so, and if the result was not like this, then the Museum Kukurevidze, no one would knew about it, because this is local event, and as of today, further contests are now in we see all these events, and we thank State Department of Affairs. Maybe these people are there forlorn. Sorry to interrupt you. And Director Berezenko was fired after this. And then there was Barzova. There was a director of the department. So they were called Vohvartse before. So this was a person who said, what can I do? What can I do? The conclusion is, country changes, but power doesn't. We shouldn't look at new faces. We should look at new deeds. If we want some reforms in culture, we should create some sort of fresh wind, because air is not fresh now, and no ideas will come up in this state. To get new ideas, we should bring some oxygen. There should be some new air, new ideas. Otherwise, nothing will change. So there's no change at the moment.
Holy Spirit.
So we should formalize our actions, because this is law. We have criteria, we have procedures, we see that something is wrong, and we are the victims of this. We are the sufferers, because society sees what is going on. Okay, I was selected there. So we were selected, and I was one of the members, and I have 30 years of experience of entrepreneurship, and I can assess the plan of the candidate. But if other people on the commission have other motives, I also was nominated for Mistetsky Arsenal, but there were many people involved, and there are some different organizations participating. So we should understand this area, but those people who were there, they are more concerned with the law enforcement than they do not know much about cultural sphere. So the matters we're discussing whether the law on contests really work. The public does not know about these contests and cannot provide its representatives for the commissions and nominees. So we do not know about the information about nomination. We get this information in 2 or 3 weeks accidentally. And the director of Department of Culture of Kyiv can meet with his subordinates in 3 days after the contest was announced, and does not provide any information. So we cannot provide candidates. The programs of the candidates are not discussed, and these programs, they do not influence the results. The site does not broadcasting, does not provide materials. So Commission on Culture, and it pushed through the law that is not supported. So they passed the law, and they insisted on its implementation, and they said that they do not need additional financing. But we don't need such laws. They just confuse people. Ms. Natalia Griza, head of Cultural Division of Reanimation Package of Reforms. She wants to comment. We cannot hear this. So, someone imitates actions instead of really implementing. These officials in the city administration, they said they do not have such conditions. So I have a video of this drawing. So how commissions are formed. People select those people that are dependent. They are not independent. So there is a director who keeps silence. He sits and keeps quiet, and they do this all quietly. Also, the heads of the departments, they are dependent on them. So they cannot contradict because they all dependent on their heads. And also they just make majority vote, and this is end of their activity. About the independence of the members of the commission, there are no unknown people in the cultural sphere. All people know each other, and here I shouldn't support a person whom I know. I should support better strategy. And we should do this despite our long-term friendship. So we should give priority to ideas. For the last 4 competitions, the director of Hanenka Museum was selected as the head of Russian Museum, and there is some confusion. They are selected, they are elected. They are all well-known people. How the public can influence the procedures and the selection of the candidates. There should be system of control, and the public should control the results of work of these people who are selected. So we wanted to continue our experience of cooperation on the different platform. And I now declare a collective candidate for the position of National Arts Museum. We write recommendations based on our own practical experience, and we also guarantee that we will come in a year when there will be presented the program consists of the program envisages the work for 5 years, and we want to control the first year. We will come and see what work was done during this 1 year, no matter who is the director, and we will ask why you have selected this director if he didn't implement this plan, for example. So this is my subjective view. This is a practical work, what can be done with these contests, half of which was carried out already. So we shouldn't cancel maybe them. We should use our right to monitor in a year all yearly programs of all heads of cultural institutions who were selected. So if they failed, so we shouldn't leave them for the next 4 years. I would like to address Yulia. You said about Merhold, with what program would he come? So director is a manager. All these contest procedures, this is not about creative leadership. We are speaking about vector of development. It should be identified by director. Director is not, the director should deal with practical issues, how to develop the institution. So we have underwater stones here. So even if this is one and the same position, general director and creative director, art director. So why does this program, why isn't this program reviewed? I'm not a specialist in museums. For example, the director of the museum says, we have as our main task to preserve the museum as we have it. We should preserve our funds. We should repair sewage. This is not a program. If someone else comes and he said, every museum should preserve its funds, but it shouldn't keep it in the basement. And another person comes with a program and wants to develop the museum, to bring it to the international level, to share museum funds, and of course they will repair sewage. So these programs, they should be assessed and they can be audited and they can be under control. So if you ask the heads of these institutions what they do, they say that they preserve eternity, but this is not a program to preserve eternity. Dear colleagues, so there should be moderation of the process. A year ago, did you understand that there will be an exhibition of Malevich and others?
Треба говорити в мікрофон, це дуже важливо, бо в нас онлайн-трансляція.
Я прошу прощения. Да. Выставка, каждая...
Exhibition is a tactical step. But if it is in the framework of the strategy established by this director, of course it is. So this is completion of the strategy. So we would discuss it off records. Culture is subjective area, and in subjective sphere, there are no physical indicators, or they are secondary. And I insist always that management of our state, including culture, there should be more expert community involvement. There should be renowned experts who know whether it is good or bad, despite indicators of quality, of quantity, tickets sold, because any programs can be accomplished in such a way that we will be ashamed of it. So all it can be assessed only by expert community. And I hope that, and we work on this, we should create real, active, representative expert councils that will assess functional capabilities of these heads, their background, their experience. So this contest of programs, this is not the contest of literary works of the writers. So there are things that are in the expert community, and there the expert can say that this person has potential, and I guarantee that there will be dynamic work and this person can do more than others. I give the floor to Natalia. After Yevgeny, I remembered that I didn't answer fully to the question whether my experience was taken into account in Mistetsky Arsenal. So there were many events initiated, but they were not taken into account. Everyone listened, but no one heard my program for a year and for 5 years, and it was rather revolutionary, despite that Arsenal was some sort of revolution. This is revolution after revolution. So experience was not taken into account, and in the law, they do not envisage to take into account the background of the contestants. I would like to give an example on Donetsk Art Museum. I'm from Donetsk myself, and there was an exhibition of Safonov. And in some way, this painter is known. And the director of the museum said, I have never seen such a big money. Maybe. And if we say that there are no criteria how to assess the activity of director, let's say that there are two parts: cultural strategy of development of the institution, and sorry to say, there should be economic area, economy area. If the number of visitors will be increased and some new projects will be involved, and the club of friends of the museum will grow, and also there will be some people who will provide, so this will bring success in both areas, in creative and in administrative. And we should see the strategy, we should provide the opinion, our recommendations, and then the strategy will go on the commission with some recommendations. So I heard in this round table several arguments, and one of them is that culture as an area of activity should be separated from any political influence from the state. State should provide financing of cultural institutions, but should not intervene in the process of cultural and creative management of this cultural institutions. And civil society and expert community should get united, and not only in the framework of such events, because we see now some conservation of these efforts. We should work more in the advocacy of rights, of cultural rights of the population, not only our individual rights as representatives of different groups. And I see Natalia Grivda would like to comment, and before you start, I would like to ask you. 2 years the Commission has been working, the group of reanimation package of reform. And these gaps, these failures of the contests, it gives also the assessment of your work. You do not advocate these changes, and after scandalous contest, no one except Ms. Salata provided assessment of these actions. Even the member of your group, Mrs. Troska-Luta, she recognized that there were some violations, but she didn't insist on her position, and she just supported the position of the power. So could you please comment on this? Thank you very much. I'm Natalia Grivda, and I'm the professor of Kyiv University, named after Taras Shevchenko, and I am the head of cultural sphere reanimation package of reform. And we supported the law, we work on the law, and our recommendations were partly taken into account, and let's speak for our own activities. And of course you can come to our meetings, and if you have questions to Astrovska-Luta, please, you can ask her. And I feel my responsibility and our collective responsibility. We do not explain how this law will work. We didn't explain, we didn't communicate with the community, with the expert community, and we start to do this now. So I we speak a lot about it. We ask people to join, to communicate, to introduce changes, to accumulate this pool of comments. And Kateryna, did I say that I'm guilty? Yes, I'm ready to be responsible for my words and actions. We start to do it. And our responsibility lies in the fact that there are many members of the cultural group of Reanimation package of reforms. We conducted a special meeting. We discussed these issues. And we believe that these procedures are not satisfactory, and we have some proposals. And we presented them, and now we sent them as a letter from RPR by using our experience and our influence, also to the Committee of the Cultural Sphere and to the Ministry of Culture and to those bodies of state power that in the recent future will carry out our contest procedures. Our recommendations are like this. We should develop, and here Yevgen told us this clearly, and he made his comment on this. There should be clear criteria of assessment of these programs. People who work in culture, they know what is methodology. There is no methodology. Let's elaborate methodology. For the next commission, we should create a methodology how to assess the programs. There is no form how to provide these programs, and there is no internal logic, and also the instrument of how to assess these contributions that are stated in the program. So the first proposal to make this as a separate contribution. Maybe experts will tell me how to do this. This should be the document that will be obligatory for implementation. How to assess programs. Second position is that the contest cannot take place if there is no video broadcasting of this contest live, and there should be video registration, and then this video should be live. That should be live broadcasting of this contest, and it should be on the site of the body of power that carry out this contest procedure. And they do not get these recommendations, and if they do not accept, there are volunteer organizations connected with the media who are ready to do this by their own expense and effort. And we even had the proposal to Ukrainian Crisis Media Center to join this procedure and to become a part of this online transparency. And all these proposals are in the written form, and we submit them. And then the community and part of the community that are interested in the contest procedures, they can observe what is going on. Thirdly, there should be, please help me, there should be personal responsibility. Not only expert responsibility, but also moral responsibility of those who make this selection. So there should be social responsibility. This is a very difficult area. And there is such a notion, not collective, but maybe personal, social responsibility. And this should be stated. Maybe there should be other procedures that will force you as a member of the Commission to be responsible and honest. So we have 50 people in this room. So these are the proposals, and I take the responsibility that the responsible bodies will get this in the form of the letter. And the next proposition, live broadcasting. Yes, I told everything I wanted, so I thank you. And one of the decisions taken by RPR is to be the part of all this contest procedures, and we will join this process of contests. So thank you. So all our speakers had the opportunity to speak, and now I would like to give the mic to painter Savak. And so I say that collective recommendations for Natalia Zabolotna for the position of the head of National Art Museum of Ukraine is here with me. Please, you can sign this document if you are if you agree to provide this recommendation. So we have an evolutionary approach that this is our nominee, right? If we have some plans that we want to implement, what should we do? Can you comment on this? Because I was listening to carefully, and I heard the interview that you gave to Gramatsky Radio, and there was such a thought that if the power will violate these procedures, you as painters that are in this platform, that you were ready to start some actions, some civil actions. And is there any sense in these actions? And you, as a union of painters, how can you influence these processes?
First of all, I'm glad to see our cultural community members here. We can influence only our works as artists. And about some public actions, well, every government is hated by people. This is Pushkin's words. We are talking about professionalism. The previous speaker told that we approached methodology issue. Contrary to other vectors, methodology which are successful in this country, they are successful in some other sectors, but not in the cultural sector. The skill to preserve heritage, we do not have transparent mechanism. Yevgen Karas is right to let's give this right to experts, but where shall we take them? Who of experts have graduated from Harvard? And does anybody know Metropolitan Opera director? I know two art directors of international institutions. Everyone should self-evaluate himself or herself till the time some administrators will control and rule us. At this stage, when we lack methodology, we select individuals by their deeds to fill the vacancies of directors. We need an active actors, players. We don't need aesthetic, engaged, futuristic curators. We need professionals who well understand where good things and where bad works. Those persons who are capable to hold Malevich exhibitions, such directors, they should fill such vacancies. I have some books of Leonid Brezhnev. I preserve them at home, but it doesn't mean that I believe in them. Well, as concerns some economic problems and curators, they like to drink alcohol. We have you asked me for artistic opinion. Artists always have non-ordinary opinions. Ukrainian Museum I have close relations with it. In 1980, Yatsenko director, and they tried not to exhibit, not to display my picture, and they used a stick to dismantle it from the museum wall, and now this picture is displayed in Bordeaux Museum. We should express our methodology in a very explicit manner. I would like to say sorry to those persons who have been preserving heritage for long years. Well, she could. She has made beautiful mistakes arsenal. I'm not talking about aesthetic nuances to hold Natalia Filipovna responsible for them. I'm talking about a public figure, about her as a public figure. So we should support Zabolotna. Everything which she touches becomes in demand. Katya Sacha can't be the top of our culture. We should change something. Why footballers' wives should tell us how to live? Footballers and terrorists now are public figures. Artists were the examples in previous centuries. Let's do such rules, at least in our country. We will use this, your speech, as quotations, and please use your quotations at Facebook pages. It was very colorful speech. Thank you. I would like to say that I agree absolutely that it is not track and field events. In the cultural domain, everything at the level of ear and your sensations, and where the experts had their studies, what is their background, who they know. This is a deadlock situation. What is the primary scene? A cock, a hen, or an egg? In our situation, we start with personalities. There is a personality of Zabolotna. She has background which speaks for itself. And as a member of artistic processes, I prepared several projects, and now I know that I will not be able to display them. Art Kyiv exhibition participants, about 50 institutions. When we theorize here and talk about procedure and methodology, 200 artists just now don't know where to display their pictures. There is no top-level project which was planned previously, just a group of people which is rather large and has been put in much efforts and money. for this country in the center of Europe to be a European country, but not some outskirts of something. Try to consolidate and establish modern Ukrainian art. They have consolidated themselves, their reputation, their money, their plans, and they made a bet on Zabolotna. Natalia, we would like to submit your personality so that you win the competition to fill the vacancy, so that Ukraine in the downtown of its capital has such an institution in which we can bring our friends from other countries who are leaders of the countries. If we would like to be a cultural country, I would like to comment communications. In this particular case, in this particular example, let's not wait until proposals will be incorporated into the legislative acts. I hope that Monday, Tuesday next week on the air there will be a public resource National Museum Restart. nmr.kyiv.ua. One of the sections will be programs of candidates. Publicize your programs, post them there, and the public, we ask you to study these programs. As concerns live broadcast, there is Teleportus organization from Rivne. Sergey is my friend, so you can tick this point. So this concerns communications. We do actions. A very interesting idea of reload. Today we will hope that National Arts Museum in Ukraine, which should have to become flagship of modernization and development in Ukraine, can get a real chance thanks to new creative modern drive based director to perform this program, and very interesting initiative when the public, but not some arrangements between separate personalities in the power fill the vacancies. I hope that thanks to UCMC we can approach general grassroots public in Ukraine who would support our proposals, and thanks to this grassroots platform I hope we can achieve changes. We have 5 minutes left, so I would like to give the floor to Olena Salata. She was the first who spoke today. So please, can you summarize just 5 seconds? I would like to say that today the main claims to the competition procedures from the public, from mass media and governmental institutions, lack of strong institutions to influence, lack of influence of the public, those cultural institutions which have already started to develop and where their own civil position developed in Mistetsky Arsenal Artistic Institute with Masha Zadorozhny at the center of Dovzhenko, Dia, and many others. They try to make their directors resign. This means that the system has been struggling with novators. This project, we want programs to be discussed in open environment publicly, this should be a participatory model, which is one of principles, European principles, where we strive to access, we strive to assess Europe. Now Yuri Makarov, please. I think that if from this, if we do not have event of today, the rest of procedures would be odd. Only this event made this issue put on the agenda. So in such format and composition, we need such events. If we continue to hold such events, then we will succeed. And if such public platform will not be used, then there will be no chances for us to succeed. So I like this event very much. Who was the initiator? I would like to thank that person. I don't know who he or she is. I'm afraid to tell, but I would like to say, let's get together. Miss Natalia, I think all this discussion for you is not only a chance but only a high responsibility. I think you are ready to start reload, to present your program. What else are you planning to do as a candidate to fill the vacancy in the National Art Museum? What else do you have to communicate your program not only to the competition board but also to the public in general? Thank you very much for your trust. It is always high responsibility, but I'd like to say that I'm not an initiator of this idea. I was invited by several groups from cultural community. They invited me to have a cup of coffee, and different academic communities and cultural community. They simultaneously offered me this initiative of this event. When I was reminded by my blog, when I was asked what does it mean for me to lose Mistecki Arsenal, it was for me like
Оця ініціатива бути директором
it was for me like forced abortion. So to be a director of the National Arts Museum, this is not my personal initiative, a one-person initiative. For these 10 days, I got used to this thought to submit my documents for competition to fill this vacancy. So I suppose that theoretics and international institutions and journalists, they call to me after a certain break when people afraid to call me by phone. They were afraid that I would commit a suicide because I lost Mistecki Arsenal. And cultural community promised me that the program for 1 year or for 5 years, it would be a collective work of cultural community which would support it and defend it as a candidate, and I will submit my candidature for this competition. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for your participation in this event, and we wait for our next meetings, maybe in September.